Oh man, Far Cry Instincts.
Were we playing it before the podcast, right? We were just sitting on the couch.
I think so, yeah. I
don't remember what Far Cry Instincts even is.
So that's how good it is. Xbox port.
It was like completely on rails.
Yeah.
Like objective arrow always pointing, like huge cartoon.
Follow your instincts.
Follow your instincts.
What's the tagline?
The arrow says your instincts.
Yeah.
On the other side.
Our art director was a political cartoonist.
It's October 21st, 2015.
This is Idle Thumbs 233. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm James Spafford.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
And I'm Nick Breckon.
Welcome back, Nick.
Thanks.
I'm glad you're back.
We got an email last week from
I heard about this email.
Yeah, someone who's pretty new to the podcast and was confused as to why every time you're on the podcast we're welcoming you back as though you've been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
So, welcome back.
Thanks.
It's been a while.
No, it has been a long time.
Yeah.
Where have you been?
Nowhere special. Marin County.
Marin County.
Yeah.
So far away, man.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah.
Did you play any video games at all?
Well, I know that you just now played Daddy Longlegs.
That's
because
true.
I told you to.
I did play that game.
Daddy Longlegs.
Daddy Longlegs.
Daddy.
We talked about this.
Nick, you don't even know what we're doing here. Just, Nick, how would you say Daddy Longlegs in a notable way?
Daddy Longlegs.
I don't know what cover of this hit song Daddy Longlegs that vocal belongs in. That's okay.
Daddy Longlegs. Daddy. Daddy Longlegs. Daddy. But yeah, I played that weird game.
I really enjoyed.
So you set me up a little bit.
Yeah, I just said download Daddy Longlegs and I didn't say anything about it. And I really enjoyed your dawning realization.
Yeah.
As you started to perceive that this game is basically a QWOPalike.
Yeah, it took one. Yeah, I mean, it took one fall and then a re-up and then realizing, oh yeah, this is
what I'm doing now.
I'm in one of these games.
I'm doing this again.
I'm falling on my face.
Yeah.
I like the QWOPalike as a genre now, I guess.
I know.
That you've just coined.
I mean, you could arguably say that games like Surgeon Simulator and stuff are a sort of...
I guess so,
That's about... Like, when you consider how far something like Spelunky is from the original Rogue, I would say that that's... I would say that you could... If that's a roguelike, or if even something like Sub-Level Zero, which we talked about also recently, if something like that is referred to as a roguelike, then I'm pretty sure Surgeon Simulator and Daddy Longlegs are QWOPalikes.
Okay. And Octodad.
And Octodad.
Octodad and all
Goat
those.
Simulator.
That sumo wrestling thing from whenever ago.
Oh, that
Parastavat.
That bread game.
I Am Bread.
I Am Bread.
Yeah.
So basically, just you're saying that
Minotaur China Shop maybe is like a cousin, a different evolutionary branch of QWOPalikes.
It's a little different, but the ones that are just like
movement.
The genre name that I prefer is Physics Hell.
Yeah, that's good.
Or Flops.
What you need to do is combine Bullet Hell and Physics Hell into the most terrible experience. If you had to evade like waves,
your
and waves
spaceship is just two guns held together by a rubber band
with the two legs stuck out of it, sort of waddle along the ground like in Space Invaders.
This is just a Big Dog game.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
You are the Big Dog's AI algorithm.
Man, the forums have been talking about doing another Wizard Jam, Game Jam, Idle Thumbs Game Jam.
Talking about a wonderful Winter Wizard Jam.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and this sounds like a good pitch. For the Wizard
QWOPalikes.
Well, this like weird
a Big Dog QWOPalike.
Big Dog QWOPalike. Big Dog QWOPalike.
Did you see that Big Dog?
DARPA.
It's a bit early for robot news, but did you see that Big Dog alike? It's not actually a big dog that had a friend that was a drone. that like
a friend. They have friends now. So that's the more disturbing word than the.
Yeah, it has this little drone, and the drone like flies up high and then like scouts out the landscape and reports back on the landscape to the dog to provide it with the optimum
in the big dog bullet hell QWOPalike and it's physics hell thing. If that is just like a insane physics driven Gradius game, but you play as a big dog, it absolutely makes sense that you would have a quadcopter drone that you can get out of a little pellet somewhere that floats around and helps you out.
Yeah,
all those games are all about having a stupid floater.
True. Yeah.
Stupid
They're all about
friend.
having that stupid floater. True. But yeah, in this game, it would still be a quadcopter, but it would, for no reason at all, be affixed to you by way of 2 elastic ropes. They can get stuck
you would control the copter
and,
using the right analog and control yourself with the left analog.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
But one of the axes of the analog stick actually just retracts and extends the cable that connects the drone to your big dog, and that's how you...
Right.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on Daddy Longlegs?
No.
Well, you can get it on the iOS store.
It's funny.
Thoughts?
Yeah.
It's worth a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth a minute.
At least.
Yeah.
Last week, Chris was excited about it being your life, Nick.
It is pretty preposterous in that. Well, I didn't realize you can sort of upgrade your
daddy.
You can upgrade your daddy.
I think that's all cosmetic, though.
It's not though. I got a rocket pack, and it suddenly elongated my body and made me a completely different QWOP guy. Completely different
like
species.
The sort of like horse daddy.
Yeah, a horse daddy. I became a horse daddy.
That's not really an upgrade. It's basically just a different game.
Well, that's what I mean.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's a totally different experience.
It's a totally different game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think Big Daddies, Daddy Longlegs rather, and Big Dogs, are there any relation? Yeah.
I mean, if someone were to make this... Okay, so Daddy Longlegs is a game where you try and like walk with a long, 2-legged sort of weird creature.
Like a daddy.
A daddy, if one might say, if you will. And it's like basically a little square at the top and then really long legs, as you might guess. And if someone were to make that into an autonomous robot, it would be the most terrifying thing to encounter.
Sort of Petman sequel.
Yeah, if Petman
it would just be called a daddy long legs. That's what everyone would call that. When
that's what it would be called, like in the Half-Life 2 universe, or like
right.
You know,
exactly.
Whatever, like
someone would shout, "Daddy long legs!"
Yeah, exactly.
Rockets would start flying, and like
weird, like horn noise would occur.
Fire in the hole.
Yeah. I'll come with you. I'll stay here. I'll come with you.
He'll just start blasting out his theme tune. Daddy Longlegs.
Yeah, that's how you know that.
You can tell the Daddy Longlegs by their distinctive cry. Daddy Longlegs.
Croon.
No, this is just that Skyrim video where like they put in like the weird Spider-Man, like Macho Man guy, like that.
Spider-Man Macho Man.
Randy Savage.
Yeah, it's the Spider-Man with like a weird folded back. Like they just took a spider, skinned it as like Spider-Man suit, and then put Macho Man's like face on the front of it.
Oh, so it is a Spider-Man Macho
just, like,
Man.
Oh yeah, and just like do like Macho Man like sound effects. Just, like, run. Or maybe I'm combining two.
Is this a reference to anything or some kind of joke?
No, it's just made like that scene is what.
No, I know, but I mean the thing that you're actually describing is that
this is.
I might be combining two.
Is that derived from some
mods.
weird?
It's the Skyrim mod version of that Team Fortress 2 cheaters map that has the giant cat that comes out of it and shoots everyone.
Oh yeah,
that's true.
It barfs bees.
But the joke is just that the internet loves cats. Like Macho Man,
Spider-Man.
Pretty sure
a spider.
Pretty sure it's real. There's definitely a Macho Man mod.
I am not contesting that this is real.
There's definitely a Spider-Man mod. I'm not sure.
Expressing doubt that somebody made this. Are you kidding? Like that's not. I'm just curious what its provenance is.
Who knows?
It's from that classic Spider-Man Spider Macho Man meme.
Oh right, that's true. I found that on knowyourmeme.com, a website that I've frequented more than I would care to admit.
Oh, because you're just like, what is this?
Like, what is this thing now?
Yeah, I'm not.
Have you guys never been to Know Your Meme?
We've all been to Know Your Meme.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that I wasn't crazy here.
It sucks because memes are like, It's a thing that's supposed to just self-perpetuate and just be in a collective consciousness, but then if you actually have to look up what it is,
well,
it's kind of defeating
its infinite of them, right?
What's this Doge?
Yeah.
I mean, the word meme has sort of been downgraded to just like an image that's funny.
Just a joke
is kind of what that is, and how it doesn't need to have sort of perpetuated itself very far to get called that. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So you were shopping for Halloween costumes on Know Your Meme.
Mm-hmm. And instead I found this game called Downwell that is weird. Really good, that I've been playing for hours and hours since it came out. This is a game that I had never heard of until the day before its release. Doug Wilson, who was the designer of Johann Sebastian Joust, he started tweeting about this game called Downwell on the eve of its release, and I had never heard of it. And I know that Doug is a big champion of Spelunky and has been for a long time, and that was a game that I played for hundreds of hours and just absolutely love. And he started talking about this game in similar language and saying that he thinks in some cases is like, surpasses
he more or less said Downwell is the new Spelunky, yes. Which made Chris Remos of the world go really?
Yeah, he basically said that, yes. And I still didn't know what it was, and then it came out on iOS and I played it on iPhone first, and what it is a vertical, procedurally generated, I guess you could call it a roguelike, at least in the the way that people use that word now very loosely. But you are essentially...
It's like a Spelunkalike.
It is absolutely a post-Spelunky game. Like I think I differ, at least based on how much I've played of it so far, I differ with Doug about how much I would say it is sort of a direct successor to Spelunky, or how much it sort of surpasses Spelunky. I don't really think that's a useful comparison personally. But a thing that he is, I think, getting at that I do strongly feel is that it is the product of a post-Spelunky world. Like, this is a game that was designed by someone who has played that game, and it is one of the creations that points to how important Spelunky is and like just the influence it has had. And so anyway, what it is, it's named, and it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek name because you literally just go down a well. That's all you do for the whole game. You play a character.
The title screen is actually just a well which you jump into.
Yes, exactly. And then the word Downwell above it. And your character has these gun boots. So if you're standing on solid ground and you hit there's one button, there's left, right, and a single other button. If you hit that button, you jump. And then if you hit the button while you're in the air, you will fire bullets out of your boots. And those will sort of slow your descent a little bit to help, so you can maneuver.
Yeah, they work a little bit as like a retro rocket.
Exactly. And then they also obviously shoot enemies. You can also bounce on enemies' heads, kind of Mario or Spelunky style, which in all cases, at least that I've encountered so far, is a sort of one bounce kill.
Unless it's a spiky enemy, in which case...
unless the enemy has,
Yeah, there's enemies
in classic platforming
Right,
fashion.
there's enemies that are spiky that you can't jump on, and there's turtles that have shells that you can't shoot and have to jump on.
Right, exactly. And that pretty much describes what you do essentially for the whole game. Is you just fall down and down and down as well, which is it is a fixed width. You can't go beyond the bounds of the screen, either left or right. All you can do is go down forever. And in fact, you can't go it's only down. You can't go back up.
It's reminiscent in structure of just like really vertical areas in 2D Metroid games.
Yes, for sure.
Or I guess...
it reminds me of Metroid 2 actually.
It is a really interesting thing about the game is that it is strictly a two-color palette. So it is, I guess
three technically,
Chris. It is technically a three-color palette, yes. Which by default is black, white, and red. Although as you play more and you collect more gems, which is the in-game currency, you just sort of passively unlock more color palettes. And this is, I think, Jake, a thing you would probably most appreciate about this game. Have you looked through its alternate color palettes?
Yeah, the color palettes are all really nice. I think I've unlocked 4 or 5 of them or something. Like I've played only under an hour of it. I actually liked the way that the gem unlock thing works in general, because it's a game, like Spelunky or Binding of Isaac or something, where when you die, your death is a wipe. Like, you're just gone. You have to start over. But gem unlocking is a fixed thing that is additive across playthroughs. So, like, if you collect 300 gems on your first life and then 300 more on your second life, a progress bar fills up saying you have 600 gems towards 1,000, and at 1,000 you just get something.
Right.
Whether it's either a new play mode or a new color palette, right?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of Rogue Legacy.
Yeah, it's a very, very small...
Sort of, but except that in Rogue Legacy, you have to... in Rogue Legacy, you're doing that to continually progress through a campaign.
Yeah,
whereas in this game, you actually start from zero every single time.
You unlock, new... ultra-high meta-level features in this.
Nothing that affects the
It's just sort of rewarding continuous play with something tangible.
So there are two things you can unlock. You can unlock color palettes, which are purely cosmetic, obviously, and then you can unlock play styles, which do affect the gameplay, but in ways that have trade-offs.
I have swinging arms mode or something like that.
Yeah, so swinging arms style means that the only power-ups you find are gun power-ups, for instance, and so you find a lot more gun power-ups, or not really power-ups, but just sort of different gun pickups, but you don't find other things, and I think there's another trade-off. The most of these feel to me like sort of
there's some weighting changes as well.
Sorry?
There's just some weighting changes.
Oh, okay.
What happens?
The one that I've now unlocked that I can't imagine ever wanting to change is levitate style, which just makes you fall a little more slowly.
That sounds really useful. Yeah. The game is frantic.
It is so frantic. This game, one of the things that really distinguishes this game from Spelunky is that it is just heart-pounding the entire time because you are constantly contending with gravity. Gravity is sort of an intrinsically terrifying force in the universe because we can't really control it very well. I mean, we have planes and things, but gravity is just this constant force exerted on all of us. And in this game, there's always farther down to go. You're always just going down, down.
If you stop for too long, the enemy types that just seek you out and float towards you are going to just fuck you up. So you don't ever want to stop for too long unless it's just to sort of angle yourself to more appropriately jump onto something or to jump off an edge.
Also because stopping is the way that you recharge your guns, right? That's how you...
Yeah, so...
touching the ground does it.
Touching the ground or touching an enemy.
Yeah, bopping an enemy.
Yeah. So, what that means... One of the reasons that people like Doug Wilson are talking about this game as kind of a Spelunky successor is because of how these systems start to work together. So, everything I feel like that we've talked about so far in this game, you could basically... It's sort of in line with something like Gravity Hook. Did you guys play that game, Adam Saltzman's... remember there was kind of a genre of game for a while that was flash games being made by kind of these small scale flash games being made by interesting game developers that really focused on really highly polishing a small, simple, but very exacting and precise set of mechanics. And the original Meat Boy was one of those. The pre Super Meat Boy. Yeah, Cannibal is a good example of that, which is also by Adam Saltzman. The original Meat Boy. There was this whole family of flash games that kind of, and this game feels like that basically, except that the more you play it, the more you realize it has some of that more Spelunky reward for kind of engaging with its systems in a...
You can create weird emergent cascades of shit.
Yeah. Not the same as Spelunky in the sense that these enemies, at least that I've played so far, don't really interact with each other. Physics isn't really a thing like it is in Spelunky. And that's one of the reasons I don't really think it's super useful or accurate to talk about this game as a direct Spelunky follow-up, because that game has kind of its own just constant ecosystem and world ticking along in a way that this game doesn't, at least not in the same way. But this game does have a huge amount of reward, just play, intrinsic reward for play that it opens up. And a lot of that has to do with the combo system and the way you reload. So, Spaff, like you were saying, and Jake, anytime you touch the ground, your feet touch the ground or your feet bounce off an enemy, you reload your gun and you have a limited amount of ammo. So if you're falling through the air and you shoot all your bullets, you don't have any bullets left, and then you have to either land on the ground or jump on an enemy to get your bullets back. Also, once you have killed 5 enemies in a row without touching the ground, and that includes either shooting them or bopping them, you then start a combo counter at 5, which counts above your character. And then the more enemies you continue to kill without ever touching the ground, the higher that combo counter goes. And then when you finally break the combo, and you finally lose the combo, if you get high enough, I think if you get to around 11 or higher, maybe you will get a reward. I think that at the low level, you maybe get 100 gems, which is the in-game currency. But then the higher your combo when you break it, and I've gotten combos I think into the 40s at this point, you get extra hearts and like big chunks of guns and extra gems and extra like charge, which is bullets basically, like extra like ammo, so that you can fire more times before having to reload.
You get sort of more slots added to your gun.
So you can basically just create bonuses and power-ups out of nothing. And Doug made a really excellent point in an editorial he wrote for Polygon about this game, which is that one of the things it does really well is that it actually makes the early levels rewarding, even if you've already mastered them. Like he points out that for a lot of players,
because you can use it to load up for expert play.
You use it as your sort of combo proving ground. And I have to say that I don't like. So once I started doing that, once I started playing the game kind of for combos, at least in the sort of first world or so, it really started to open up in a crazy way. But I don't think I'd be able to do that if I didn't have the levitate playstyle. And the thing is, because you unlock playstyles and palettes just through having more aggregate gems, you'll get it eventually if you just keep playing the game. Like you don't have to do anything, at least as far as I can tell, you don't have to do anything special to get access to the other playstyles. So if you do like this game and you do stick with it and it does kind of like latch onto you, once you get the levitate power up, start going for combos as much as possible, or even beforehand.
I'm waiting for the world that we get to where, like, 2 or 3 weeks down the line, we're like, I don't play on levitate anymore. Because you might get there. That may be what your life becomes.
Yeah, you move back to the other mode because you're too
just like I realized I could get combos inside of a level at a higher rate when my character moves faster. Therefore, I'm no longer playing on levitate style, and I now have a 25% higher score all the time, or whatever. That's probably not what it's going to be, but you will discover whatever the optimization trade-off is that you no longer want it because you've become too advanced a player of Downwell, or at least that's a hypothetical that I
We'll see. That feels so impossible right now based on how intense this game gets.
But so did Hell in Spelunky.
Yeah,
so.
There's a couple things.
It became all about the Hell run.
A couple things that we didn't talk about just that are core features of the game, but that I really liked a lot is because this game is completely frantic, basically, because you're just jumping off guys, constantly dropping. It does. The little breaks that it has are incredibly.
Like going into the side
great
rooms?
Feeling, because as you said, it's just one single column, except that there's little treasure rooms off to the side occasionally. So you'll see like just a lip of rock coming out with what looks sort of like a bubble wall, which adds to the sort of Metroid feel in a way. Actually, it's not. But when you walk inside of the bubble, time freezes inside of the level, and all of the insane music and sort of chiptune sound effects just fall away, and the game becomes quiet and it stops. And you walk off the screen into a tiny little cave where you can get either a power-up, which feels exactly like the Chozo statue rooms in Metroid minus the statue, or a bunch of gems. Or, I guess, in levels after the first one, there is sometimes a shopkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, swinging arm style. That's what it is. It's all guns and way fewer shopkeepers.
Oh, okay, got it.
But there's a shopkeeper, which is just a Binding of Isaac or Spelunky style shop where...
3 options, whatever.
Yeah, pick one or pick things and
so,
run
Jake,
away.
your point about the sort of like little moment of peace you get in those is actually all the more relevant when you're playing for combos, because you don't break your combo if you hit the ground entirely while inside one of those sort of time freeze bubbles.
Oh, so those are also they don't break the combo. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So like it is so
because that means you can chain a combo between levels.
Yes, you can.
Holy shit! Because the end of the level, you fall into a bubble.
Well, yeah, you still don't hit the ground in between levels,
right?
Though,
Exactly.
So you wouldn't even need that. You wouldn't.
That's true. Oh, you're right.
But in any case, yes, I very frequently chain combos between levels. Yeah, and the feeling you get when you have like a 20 or 30, or I'm sure for like really great players, like much higher than that, chain of combo, and you basically. Like, this is definitely a thing that I felt in Spelunky, especially when doing speed runs. You get that feeling where you sort of first you're just playing consciously, and then you kind of get into the flow state, and you're not really thinking about anything, and then like something juts you just the tiniest bit out of your flow state, and you're still playing just as effectively, but you're actually conscious of what you're doing, and you're then just like, oh fuck, oh my god, like you just become like highly conscious that the thing you're doing faster than you can like actually consciously decide to do it, but you're aware that that's happening, and it's kind of like terrifying.
I can remember whole like runs of Spelunky where that was, you know what I mean? Like I can remember every single detail. Do you remember that one time when we were drunk and we came back to Fell Street, the apartment that we were living in, and I just started playing. And I had barely ever gotten past the first level, and I just ended up in like a weird, like that was before we'd even gotten near any of the later levels, and I was just like doing amazing for no reason. It was a complete trash run, but I just felt like I had just, after 2 beers or whatever the amount of alcohol it was, I had fallen into that funk. God, that was so good. This game is so frantic, though. I just feel like I don't know if I can. I don't know if it really does. I played it for about 20 minutes and I went, oh man. Like the thing I liked about Spelunky personally is that it had that sort of like wind up pitch pacing.
I agree.
Where I could stand at the precipice of something, at least think about how I was going to attempt it and then act on it. And of course it would always end up being garbage, but that's part of the fun of it for me. It's the Far Cry 2 thing.
Yeah.
This is so frantic it becomes more like Super Meat Boy to me, which is not usually a game type I can sort of obsess about because I'm just bad at it.
In between. It is something that is sort of in between Spelunky and Super Meat Boy, although in the sense that you just like with respect to what you're saying, this game is basically for Spelunky players who can no longer find a good vein. Like this is like you have tapped out. Like Spelunky is like fucking slow and boring, dude.
Right.
And like when Spelunky becomes like
you're writing an ad right now,
the game that fucking noobs play. This bullshit. Downwell is the thing that like it's crazy how intense this game can become. And anyway, so I was just gonna say, like when you find yourself in one of those just super intense combo runs, Jake, the ability to like. When you realize, oh my god, and you quickly hit left and like plop down in one of those like little cave bubbles, it is such a relief. It's such an incredible relief because you can stay in there as long as you want and your combo still hasn't been broken. And then you like walk out to the edge of the bubble and kind of psych yourself up and like jump up so you don't like ever
touch the ground
before leaving the bubble. It's like, here we fucking go. And then I don't know, it's an intense sensation.
Are you playing it on PC?
Yes, I am definitely playing it on PC.
I haven't played it on PC yet. And on the iPhone, it just seems way too insane.
You know, Doug Wilson, who is a million times better at this game than I am and has beat the whole game, he only plays it on iPhone because that's what he's only ever has played it on. And he is a champion of playing this game on iPhone. But I got to tell you,
you just play with a 360
no
controller,
fucking
right?
way. Yeah. So I first played it on iOS because it came out on iOS a few hours before it came out on Steam, and I thought it was coming out on Steam like next year or something. So I got it on the phone, and I'm like, oh, this game's really cool. Man, I'm bad at it though. And then it came out on Steam. I got on there and I played with the keyboard, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting this. And then I plugged in my 360 controller, and I'm like, oh yeah. And now I can't. Now I just can't play. Like I still have it on my phone, and I've loaded it up like maybe 3 or so times since using a controller on PC, and there's just no way. Like it's a total lost cause. I can't deal with the virtual sort of keypad. No, I can't do it.
Because of just the type of game that this is.
Some people do, and that's cool.
Since it is sort of a Spelunky-esque situation, and the way that you're talking about it makes me wish that there was something that was like the daily challenge that was inside of it. I don't think a daily challenge itself would maybe work necessarily because this game seems
brutal.
you just get crushed more often.
A daily combo challenge.
But I wish there was something, because I really liked being basically a Spelunky tourist who could watch, you and Klepek and a bunch of Patrick Klepek and a bunch of other people play Spelunky and just occasionally watch streams, or like I became versed enough in how Spelunky worked from playing a little bit of it that I could just watch other people do weird shit with it and just tune in and follow stuff. And this game seems like a game that could conceivably have that if they could figure out what it was. It wasn't just this one, like a daily well seems like it would be tough.
You could, I mean,
unless they like do 5 or something.
You said daily combo challenge. It might be a cool thing. Might be everyone gets the same level, but then within that level, you're on a combo leaderboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically. And like you can lose and regain, you can lose and start over your combo like as many times as you do in the level, but once you die, you're that's it. You've lost your chance. So whatever your high combo is from that's maybe a bad idea, but like you could there are probably things that you could figure out.
Finding some way that you could have that was such a smart goddamn move with Spelunky. I'm surprised that it's not more commonly done. But
I've seen it a few times, but
it's hard to replicate when
it's like it really
Spelunky itself plus the daily challenge.
Spelunky is such an amazing game. And I still like this is not a knock on Downwell at all. I mean, I still think Spelunky is like such an untouchable like game for the kind of thing that it is. But it's funny it's funny thinking about how hard this game feels and then thinking back to how hard Spelunky felt when I started it. You know?
Yeah.
But I know that this one is still way harder, actually. Like, it's like I can sometimes talk myself into being like, oh, well, Spelunky was really hard when I started playing it. But it's like, no, this is a different thing. This game is so intense. This game, it's a different kind of intensity.
Well, it has when you're playing it correctly, it has the never stopping element of something like, basically like that really intense. When everyone made the fake Flappy Birds, and there was that one fucking hardcore one that looked like Super Hexagon.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That was
that was made by wasn't that made by Terry Kavanagh, who made Super Hexagon?
Yeah. Terry Kavanagh's Flappy Bird.
Jam,
yeah. Oh man, I love that thing.
But that thing, just watching you play that, it was just like, you cannot imagine what a brain is doing to maintain it for more than 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But to play this game well. Seems like it means your run. Like, how long does a complete game run of Downwell, do you think?
Oh, I have absolutely no idea. No clue whatsoever. Yeah. Like, to the actual end of the game?
Yeah, you just be a sweaty mess by the end of it.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. But I'm sure that people, people like Doug who can regularly, I don't know about regularly, I have no idea actually if he regularly or not beats the game, but who definitely can beat the game. I wonder if he's just at this point played it so much because the reason he's played it so much at this point is because he was a tester on the game. So it's not as though he's gotten to this point in the last week. Yeah. Right. That would be crazy. But I think he's been playing it for the better part of the year now. And it's totally possible that he doesn't really break a sweat in the sense that I don't really play Spelunky much anymore because I mainlined that game for daily for basically a year. And by the end of that, it's like I'm definitely not anywhere remotely close to like the world's best Spelunky players, obviously, because that's crazy. But like,
no solo eggplant.
Play through that whole game without it being like a very stressful experience, anymore. And I bet that is the case for at least some people with Downwell. But I still think that that's just because they're making themselves even more of a superhuman, and not because this game is like equally. All games are just kind of equally that. Like, I think this game actually really is just way more hardcore, but it's really good.
Doug had an interesting comment, I think it must have been on Twitter, in a conversation with you that I saw, which kind of highlights the extent of his madness with this. And he said,
I know what you're talking
there's
about.
a difference between playing this game and living with it.
Yeah. Well, because I said, the reason he said that is because I was like, he was like, don't let people tell you that Steam is better than iOS for this game. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, what's your, like, I know you're into it, but like, what's your actual reason for saying that? And he's like, well, there's a big difference between playing a game and living with a game, by which he means obviously when it's on your phone, you can play it all the time. And I'm like, all right, that's a fair point. I don't think that's going to be me, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's how I guess you can, that probably outweighs any sort of control, mechanical control limitations. But nonetheless, it's so superior to me playing with a controller. So, also, this game is apparently the first full game that this guy made. He's a Japanese sort of just individual game developer, 23 years old. He did everything except the sound effects and music, which were made by two other guys, including the music by the guy who did the music for Spelunky, actually. And he did everything else, and I'm not sure if he's literally never released a game or if he's just never released anything sort of
commercially or something.
Yeah, commercially or of any scale. But he's definitely a young game developer, both in terms of his career and his actual age. and it's a really, really fucking impressive debut or near debut game. It's it's really, and it's $3. It's $3 not only on iOS but also on Steam. So it's called Downwell.
On PC only though, sadly.
I
bought it on Steam and then was unable to play it.
Oh, there's no Mac. There's no Mac or
I haven't got my PC
or
set up
Linux
yet.
release.
I fall into like most games now just have a thing, and I just forgot to look for the stupid little symbol. My own fault. Maybe one day it'll appear.
Yeah. It was published by Devolver Digital.
Oh yeah,
They publish a lot of sort of
those guys make some great
indie stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the game is successful. I wouldn't be surprised if they funded a port to other platforms.
If they can build to Android, iOS, and PC, it seems like whatever that is.
Is it on Android?
Is it not? Okay, well,
I thought
Android. If it builds
iOS and Windows,
Android being included in that sentence is just because I thought that was a port. But if this game can port to iOS and to PC, and it's it's not two totally different code bases, it seems like they could probably put it out on other.
No, I'm sure you're right.
OSs. Yeah. Dreamcast VMU. This is actually a game that I would think would be really cool for someone to demake as an original Game Boy ROM.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Because it would totally work.
Yeah.
This game would...
I mean, I want to play this game on
so
a Nintendo
well.
D-pad more than anything, really.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Just solder it into your, mini... what was that?
Game Boy Micro.
Yeah, your GBA Micro that just plays Downwell.
God, I think playing this game on a screen that small would give me heart palpitations.
A GBA Micro that you have to hold vertically.
Yeah, you'd have to play it sideways or something.
With one thumb above the screen and one thumb below the screen.
I wonder if, I haven't seen the palette swaps, but I wonder if that was at all inspired by the Super Game Boy.
Oh man, by Super Game Boy! They're not, because it's just literally black, white, and a color. I mean, it looks like... It looks like even farther degraded CGA graphics or something.
Okay.
The thing that this reminds me of actually is just those old DOS ASCII art games of just a smiley face constantly descending down art. It was just when your dad brings home the office computer and it has some shitty old ASCII art game
on it.
And it's just a face falling down and you could land on ASCII spikes or you have to dodge left and right. That's just what this game reminds me of because of the super monochromatic art. And that
the thing that is notable to me about the palette swaps is that some of them are just sort of just pleasing color combinations that are just chosen.
Oh, are there really intense ones?
Some of them are just crazy intense colors, and some of them are just sort of pleasant colors. But a lot of them are sort of historical excavation kind of. So a lot of them are clear and intentional references to specific old hardware or specific eras of games. I enjoy sort of.
Is
browsing.
It still always three colors?
Yes, it is always three colors. So all the sprites are basically just interchangeable because they all have three colors. And so the pleasure I get out of just flipping through those palettes, even though I rarely use more than a few of them, is kind of the same pleasure that I get from really great production design in a period film. You know what I mean? It's not as obviously ambitious as sourcing crazy old machinery and wallpaper and stuff, but it has that same subtle appreciation for the small nuanced differences in older eras.
What are some ones that you recognize?
So there's one called V-Boy, which is an obvious Virtual Boy thing. And so it's just different shades of red in that exact way. There's some that look like an old sort of Commodore game. There are some that look like the way an actual Game Boy screen looks like instead of the idealized version of...
The blue, white, and orange one is really good also.
Yeah. I don't even know if I could necessarily pinpoint the exact reference point for all of these. But if you're someone who's been playing games for a long time or cares about game history and has seen lots of old games, not just old SNES games, but
it's just evocative to see these old computer color palettes show up again.
They were very intentionally chosen, and the guy clearly has a good eye and awareness of basically the 70s through 80s of old computer games. And obviously he wouldn't have made a game that looks like this in the first place if he didn't, because it's such an intentionally archaic looking visual design, and he just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Anyway, it's really cool. Downwell, $2.99 on Steam and iOS.
Downwell is one thing. Sorry, it's clearly the iOS version. I imagine plays in portrait mode, plays in a vertical display. Downwell includes a vertical arcade cabinet mode, so you can turn your monitor 90 degrees or use a second monitor.
Really?
And tell Downwell to run in that, so it'll run in vertical mode with the iOS style UI stacked to the top, like it's a vertical arcade cabinet. Yeah. There. Look at that. There's a screenshot of it.
That is hilarious. I actually prefer it, I think, in the horizontal arrangement, just because the UI...
We'll see, Chris, when you've got your dedicated Downwell display.
Yeah, all right. That's really good, though. That's really hilarious.
Yeah. Anyway, it's the final thing about Downwell.
Yeah.
You want to take a break now that we have Downwell half is complete?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One down.
Oh, fuck you.
Well to go.
Video game. This week's episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by MeUndies, a provider of high-quality underwear and other basic garments. They are great. They come in a variety of styles, both sort of tasteful, solid colors, as well as outrageous patterns.
Tasteless
patterns that they change up from time to time. If you go to MeUndies.com/thumbs, that's MeUndies.com/thumbs, you will get 20% off your first order and free shipping. Now, I learned something this week that I want to tell you about MeUndies, which is that the materials they use are sustainably sourced from the Austrian Alps.
Wow.
So hopefully an outrageous Australian?
An Australian man.
Yeah, hopefully an outrageous team of Australians and Austrians was involved in harvesting.
What if it's like the Edelweiss? You have to march up the Alps and bring back something.
I will bring for you this material for MeUndies. And also your MeUndies. So if you that's an important fact.
Austrian.
Environmentally friendly, sourced by Austrians from the Austrian Alps. I am
sourced by an Australian in the Austrian Alps.
Yeah, sourced by an Australian who sounds like an Austrian. If you go to MeUndies.com/thumbs,
second generation Australian.
An Austro-Australian. Man, that sucks for Australia that they didn't get the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Like, Australia just kind of out of luck with that one. Too late.
It's Australo-Austrian, which is also a weird dinosaur.
Yeah.
Anyway, MeUndies.com/thumbs.
Yeah, MeUndies.com/thumbs for 20% off your first order and also free shipping. Video game.
We're back.
Oh man, we're back. We're so back. Jake, you during the break you loaded up Downwell on your vertical monitor and enabled its vertical mode. And that is an intense way to play Downwell.
Everything's bigger.
It's huge. Yeah, playing that on a decent-sized monitor up close where it's filling the entire vertical frame, it's that game is already intense. That just makes it overwhelming.
Do you have access to a Sony 4 or 8K cinema projector that you want to turn on its side and project onto the side of a building or silo?
Man, oh my god.
Please do that and write into questions@idlethumbs.net with your address and an invite, an evite.
An evite.
Oh, yeah, man.
It was watching you play that was extreme. I played it for a minute and was terrible at it. But yeah.
That reminded me of a thing that is surely not intentional, but definitely a real factor in how much Downwell I've played, is that this game does not respect Alt F4.
Does not respect.
Alt F4 does literally nothing. And so in a game like Spelunky, if I've been playing for a while,
if you want to rage quit,
and then I get really far, and then just do some bonehead fucking dipshit maneuver and die, you can just be like reflexive instantaneously, sub 1 second,
like,
Alt F4. Yeah. And it's gone, and you're like, oh, you just get up. This game does nothing. And also when you have to wait till you basically get back into the game flow, then hit start, then go down to quit. You can't even do it right from like the second
that
when
must
you
be a
die.
purposeful choice, right? All that for it seems like a system-wide,
or it's just something the developer is not really familiar with, right?
Yeah,
they don't play a lot
maybe
of
in Japan. It's a different
it
key
might
press. Like,
or there just might be fewer conventions around.
Yeah,
like those specific,
what's funny? I'm not familiar with Alt F4.
Fuck you! You're not.
I'm familiar with the.
Are you just trolling me?
No, I'm not. I'm
not familiar with the Enter key.
I'm not familiar with Control Alt Delete.
So I think what happened is that when you were playing like Team Fortress or Counter Strike, and people would trick you into Alt F4.
Oh, you got tricked?
I got tricked so many times that I just mentally blocked that whole convention in my brain. Only until like very, very recently, when people were just saying like Alt F4 delete local content or whatever. That's the only like exposure I have.
And that's Steve Gaynor.
That's true. That is Steve. That's a Steveism. But yeah,
he's people.
I don't use that.
Steve is people.
I Alt Tab and then I right click on the
I Alt Tab and then I save local
Inefficient.
data.
Alt-tab, save local content. The CPR of video games.
Maybe Downwell just has a boss button somewhere. The classic boss button, which is the same functionality as Alt F4.
How is that the same?
Well, it just makes it go away.
Do any games have a boss button where when you hit it...
If Cliffy B's fucking boss key games do not ship with a boss key...
Oh, man.
What a fucking piece of shit that guy will be. New game god. No boss key. You better have a fucking boss key. Cliffy B's company's boss key, right?
Cliffy B's boss
it
key.
is.
Cliffy B's boss key is also a comedy or jazz club, for sure.
Boss key in the key of E.
I want a boss key that just makes the game really boss. Like it just kind of blings everything up. It just sort of everything is like
you get the like Toe Jam and Earl / Fresh Prince
like a ska soundtrack maybe.
No, I was gonna say trombones just starts to get weaved into the into the soundtrack. Yeah.
Oh man, that's fine.
Drum and boss.
Is that a thing? That sounds like it would be an English thing.
Drum and boss.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some weird.
That is like confirmed English.
I know all about these things.
Being English and all.
Yeah. It's like drum bass with
being
trombone.
a boss.
Being a boss from England.
As an English boss, also an English thing.
Hey, cool.
It's weird that boss is still an inherited title in England.
Yeah.
When did that, like, where is that word
never
from?
really.
Where is that from?
It's like level lord.
Level lord.
It's an inherited title.
Man, an English hierarchy of bosses and mini bosses and level lords.
Oh man, I want
the honorable third mini boss.
I want to play Crusader Kings and just rename everybody by
mini boss Downton.
Yeah.
Boss Ashcroft, third mini boss.
The lowest,
Surrey.
the lowest level in this sort of like boss lords hierarchy is guy. First, you're just a guy. Then you're a mini boss. Then you're a boss, and then you're just, I guess, a lord.
And then you're end of level.
You're
boss.
a final boss.
Yeah, you're final boss.
Queen is the current final boss of England.
I guess so. Nick, you had a thing that
is the Queen really England's final boss? That would also mean
defeat her and find out.
There's then also a House of Commons and a House of Bosses, which is totally fine and welcome. Anyway, House of Guys.
The House of Boss.
So, Nick, you played something maybe?
Yeah. Insert it now, please.
Sure.
Get it now on the go.
Yeah, so I was going to briefly talk about Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront, a week ago, and I wasn't on. So it's a little old.
But this is Star Wars week now. There's a trailer and tickets and...
Yeah.
Lightsabers.
But I did, so I have one thing I wanted to say about this game, because obviously, whatever,
is it boss?
It's yes. You play as Lord Vader, the boss.
Boss Vader.
The thing that cracks me up about this game is that I played the original Battlefronts, And a lot of people are making comparisons between those games which were made by a different studio. This game is made by EA Dice, which is the Battlefront studio, or Battlefield studio. Sorry. I forget the name of the original developer of the series. I think
it was Dice.
No, it was. They're out of business now.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Shoot.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm really screwing up, but I think they're
no,
gone
it was
now.
a big thing that they pitched
the third game. They had a vertical slice, and then were shut down.
Wait, Battlefield or Battlefront?
Battlefront.
Oh, sorry. Never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. I thought you were talking about Battlefield, and I thought you were crazy.
In any case, the fans are going back and
forth. Was it Pandemic?
No, it wasn't Pandemic. It was oh god, it was one of those, like, I want to say Terminal Reality, but it's not Terminal Reality. It's one of those, like, I think they were in Texas. Anyway.
No, it was Pandemic.
Was it Pandemic?
Yeah.
Okay, wow, all right.
It was Okay, so the developers who have worked on this apparently are Pandemic, Free Radical, Rebellion.
Free Radical. No, Free Radical was
Free Radical
was the developer. Yeah.
Okay.
Sort of core
so
developer.
Pandemic had a 1 year from 2004 to 2005, followed by What a strange history this is apparently.
It has a series that has a very strange history. But so the original games were very free form. They were very of that era of multiplayer shooter where. Yeah. There are a bunch of vehicles out there. You could just jump in them, and then everybody would just kind of like hodgepodge in the middle of a crazy map. And it's just madness. It was like just a crazy mad thing, sort of like the early Battlefields, where it was just kind of like people hanging off the sides of like World War II planes and just doing absurd garbage. This game, I guess I could sort of compare it to. I mean, this is a bad analogy, maybe, but almost like animation keyframes. Where they very clearly like had a picture from a Star Wars battle that they wanted to eventually appear for you as a player. Like they wanted the moment where you're coming over the rise.
Collectible film cell that appears of Hoth.
And in fact, even some of the like between death loading screens are just perfectly composed shots from the Hoth battle, and it just looks incredible. Like the sound is they had access to all the original
sound design of this game is so good.
It's absurd. And so, like, they very clearly went at it from that angle and just said, we want to give people, like, these little micro moments, and then hopefully everything else will just sort of line up, and then, just sort of feel like you're in Star Wars. God, it's so funny to me how, like, still just the insanity of, like, a multiplayer shooter just, like, creeps out between...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I loved playing that beta.
All the just like the Vader getting punched by, like, a kamikaze X-Wing and stuff, and it's like, why would you think you could ever maintain gravitas in this? Are
so
you crazy?
Funny. Yeah. Everything is so well done. You get in the X-Wing, and the track is cued at the perfect moment, and it's just, everything sounds perfect, and the cockpit is, like, beautiful, and then just, like, a TIE fighter just kamikazes you out of nowhere, and then you like spawn, and then a guy like just spawn kills you in the face over and over and over, like 10 times in a row, and then like you're running down a field, and like a guy is just like Darth Vadering your face out of nowhere, and then like
I saw a gif of I think Vader killing Luke, and then someone running over and teabagging Luke.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it's like, whoa, that was oh,
it's a video game. I see.
I just love, and then they have like the ad that's just very Star Wars nostalgia. You break through the window and you can be Luke Skywalker. Just like the reality of it, just like actually crashing through that window and just like somebody teabagging you in the face. Oh, I just love. It's like the apex of just all of that. Like you can live the
the fidelity is so high. The fidelity is so high.
Experience the magic, Nick.
Yeah, no, I've been experiencing it. As someone crouches on top of my corpse,
we can make the simulation look and feel so much like Star Wars.
Yeah,
that it is like.
It is in those moments. It is shocking
the
how
contrast gets pushed farther and farther away until it's literally going to be Harrison Ford walking up to you and putting his balls in your mouth.
I know. That's what's so amazing about it.
You're like, why is this? Why did they render this? Why was it? It's just real. It is Harrison Ford.
I mean,
like, those are his balls that are in your mouth.
We've uploaded his genome to our multiplayer.
We're simming an actual Harrison Ford who thinks it's Han Solo. But it's actually being controlled by your childhood friend.
Right.
So his pants are off.
Do you guys see that trailer? You have, obviously, Nick. Have you guys also seen it with the guy jumping out the window? Someone yesterday I can't remember who, pointed out that actually it's quite a sad trailer, and that very possibly that bit when all the so he's sitting at his desk,
he just jumps out the window,
having all these memories, and then
could you describe what you're talking about?
So it's a guy. He's at work. He's in a very tall office building, maybe even the top floor, and he's kind of looking at. Is he looking at his Star Wars?
He's looking at his little R2D2 figurine,
old R2D2 toy,
and then it has all these flashbacks of him as a kid dressed as Star Wars characters and having all these wonderful moments with the Star Wars universe. Very wistful, looking back, and then out of the window around this office building, a bunch of X-Wings appear and a bunch of other spaceships come, and he sees them and he gets really excited and he smashes the window with a chair and leaps out of this building onto an X-Wing and then flies away and
with
then
his childhood friend.
With his childhood friend, and then flies into the game. Basically, it's a very literal you can relive your childhood dreams. But actually, someone pointed out online that it's actually very sad if you imagine him just being wistful about these wonderful memories and then leaping out of a building. Having imagined these amazing Star Wars things coming, that's the end of his life. And then he just flies away.
So it's he couldn't purchase tickets, and then he threw the thing out the window. It's just
Fandango is down!
God, I want to make that, I want to just put the Fandango 404 in between those two frames. And then he just flies.
His computer monitor at his desk just
and then when it comes back,
crashes with a shitty picture of minions.
Minions, and then cut back to his face. He's sad. Cut back to the screen. All the tickets are gone. Cut back to him. He's sad. Jumps out the window.
Cuts back to
I spent
note.
Sarah and I both separately spent 6 hours yesterday refreshing ticket pages. It was so sad.
And then you jumped out of a window.
The result is we actually ended up with way too many tickets.
Man, I've got a lot of Star Wars tickets right now from too many different services crashing, but it turned out that I got a ticket after all.
It's so funny how excited everyone gets.
Whatever, why not?
For months.
The read on this commercial of sad man who jumps out of window is interesting. The other interesting thing about this commercial is when you were talking about, it's literally you jump out and jump into the game. Mm-hmm. That actual commercial used to be aimed at 8-year-olds, and now it is aimed at 28-year-olds.
Right, yeah.
Literally the same commercial. It is exactly a Nintendo commercial from the 80s.
Remember this? Remember when it was fun? When you were a kid?
But it's not even that. That part is, the nostalgia part is irrelevant. It is your life sucks. Whoa, a crazy guy or spaceship is here to pull you into the TV.
I wish they did that for all of
adult,
those, because
tax-paying citizen.
I want the
father.
I want the fat man eating pasta at the table, an exploding version of that.
God, which game was that? Which Nintendo game was that? Was it Kirby?
It was Kirby. Yeah.
Oh man! But what is that then? It's it's a dad with his shitty entitled kid that he hates.
Right. Yeah.
Leave this life behind with Kirby's Superstar or whatever.
Kirby's Yarn.
Kirby's Epic Yarn.
He just wraps his kid up in a yarn cocoon. Throws him out the window. X-Wing takes away.
He wraps his kid up in the yarn cocoon, and the kid keeps eating the food. Then you just hear the bomb squad. And then it says, "You really bought this Wii for yourself." And then and the voice says, "That's why they call it the Wii U." And then he goes and plays his Nintendo alone after his kid died from eating too much. What?
Man.
Anyway.
I'd really love to see someone take that Star Wars trailer and just kind of fade it out and then just cut to a dead person lying on the street.
Why would you love that?
Just a lovely thing.
That's the actual 90s version of this ad, though.
Yeah, if this were a PC game, I guess it is a PC game. The
final shot is not necessarily the body. It's the ambulance going woo.
Yeah.
And then it just shows the logo. It says
he's holding. Yes.
Huh?
He's still holding.
He's still holding the controller. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
No, but the EKG,
the bloody controller out of frame.
And the R2D2 in the other hand.
But the EKG of his heart rate or whatever, when it goes bloop, every time it
says
illuminates
dice.
the thing, yes, it would have the logo of the game developer in the red.
Jesus Christ. Or the release date. Or it would say, it's in the game.
It's in the game,
Or it'd say, I'm going to make you my bitch.
It would spell out it's in the game.
Yep. Oh, God, gross. Anyway, these are things that we think of as human beings who exist as adults. These are the ideas that are in our brains.
What do you think of that?
Tell us at questions@idlethumbs.net.
Good seg.
Read us some of those questions.
I will.
Maybe
The previous content was weird. Viewer discretion is advised. Sorry, Earth. Remember that time on Idle Thumbs? I thought it was weird when Spaff said he wanted the Star Wars commercial to cut to a picture of a corpse. That's the tweet that I'm going to see when I do a little organic search for Idle Thumbs later this week on Twitter.
Oh, man. Okay. Let's see here.
I hope it's already an email. Someone offended by the previous conversation.
Oh, man, jeez.
Yeah. There was an email that was actually, I guess, basically in response to the discussion of World of Warplanes, Nick, which you talked about recently.
Warships.
I'm sorry, World of Warships. I'm sorry.
Jesus.
So
Get it right, Chris.
Sheldon, well, I guess this actually is about World of Warplanes, which you didn't talk about. But Sheldon Hood writes, "Hey, Thumbs, I'm far from an expert on flight sims, but hearing you talk about them a couple weeks ago made me want to write in. There are two big categories of combat flight sims in my experience. Games like World of Warplanes and War Thunder tend to have a larger audience more interested in a fun game rather than a realistic simulation, although War Thunder has a pretty hardcore sim mode. Realistic simmers usually play the digital combat simulator games or Falcon BMS, which is an upgraded version of Falcon 4.0. Yes, the Falcon 4.0 that came out in 1998. It's had a ridiculous history, which I didn't know much about, aside from the fact that there's a gigantic flowchart of the different branches that he links to the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, that is a crazy
I've seen that as
thing.
well, yeah. Setting it up is a nightmare and a half, so I haven't played it much, but almost half of my combat sim friends play by it. Swear by it, I'm sorry. For more casual sims, in my experience, War Thunder is far more popular than World of Warplanes, largely due to its customization, going from an easy-to-control mouse and keyboard game to a full-on hardcore flight sim, and because it generally avoids a lot of free-to-play trappings. It also combines land and air, and possibly sea, but I haven't played it in a long time. Hardcore sims have been in a weird position the last few years, since most of the major releases such as IL-2 Battle of Stalingrad or DCS World War II have had either disastrous development cycles in the case of DCS World War II, or have been released like a wet fart in the case of IL-2, leaving everyone wondering why they spent $80 goddamn on a half-finished game with terrible post-release support.
Yeah.
Man, I thought IL-2 was really well regarded.
Yeah, it is. I think, well, even Silent Hunter as a series is just, everybody hated the last entry. Like he's right, a lot of these games are kind of getting, I don't know. The hand that fed these developers is
I see.
Yeah, anyway.
Most people are sticking to plain old DCS since there keep being new modules released for it and a major engine update on the horizon. This is longer than I expected, but I hope it sheds some light on what the sim community is up to, or at least the ones who aren't acting as pretend air traffic control for other people who pretend to fly commercial aircraft. Civilian flight sims are their own separate beast, and I haven't touched them in a long time. Cheers, Sheldon. P.S. One of my earliest memories is riding in the car with my dad.
Listening to Idle Thumbs. Oh, no.
Listening to Space Asshole.
With P.D.Q. Bach on the air playing on the radio, specifically the sports announcer.
Jesus.
That's pretty good. Someone sent us the fictional definitive biography of P.D.Q. Bach in a nice hardbound edition. It just showed up, sent to the office without any note or explanation of who sent it.
Perhaps P.D.Q. Bach himself sent it. Friend of the show.
So that was pretty awesome. Thank you to whatever anonymous reader that was.
Yeah.
I ended up looking up P.D.Q. Bach, and this person, Sheldon, in his PS mentions the sports announcer. Actually, one of the things I watched was it's hard to describe. It was an orchestral performance of a Beethoven symphony, except there were two sports style commentators doing a play-by-play of the whole thing, calling out and they're recapitulating the theme and here's the modulation. God. And then
so are you a huge classical music nerd? If so, you already know who P.D.Q. Bach is and like them.
Yeah, exactly. It was
what you laughed at in band class,
right? Exactly. it was pretty funny. If you actually, I don't know. I got a degree in music, and so I
show up. Yeah.
No, I just
surprised you.
I just mean I don't
surprised
mean
you never heard of.
You mean that you are P.D.Q. Bach?
Yeah. I just mean I'm the kind of dork who can appreciate this, even if it's not my sort of first go to. I get it. Right?
You can give it a snide, pretentious music guy smile.
Well.
Confirmed.
Man, speaking of World of Blanks, I've been continuing to play.
It's called World of Tanks, Nick.
Jesus Christ.
It's like a passive version of that.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah.
More like-
none of your guns fire ever.
World of Blanks. It has all of the bombast of World of Tanks, but no one gets hurt.
Everyone pretends to fall down.
That's just the subhead of the 6.0 Polygon review.
No, World of Blanks is the World of Tanks, war reenactment game.
Yeah, no, that would be really hilarious.
But one person has one bullet.
But who was
Anyway, so speaking of World of Blanks,
I feel like that was a mod that I played. Anyway,
what? It's like a Civil War reenactment murder episode of a crime procedural TV show, but there was one bullet.
Not literally that.
Who had it out for him? Well, everyone. He was the Confederacy, whatever. Like,
who killed
just
Lincoln?
kidding. Right.
After they fought a weird pretend war where no one had real bullets.
But one guy did.
One guy did. And he shot the president with it.
World of Blanks.
Oh, it was John Wilkes Booth. Everyone saw him.
Well, a Lincoln assassination reenactment? Is that... We're doing a full...
Yeah.
We're reenacting a full series of months, including Lincoln going to a play.
And the full play.
A full play.
The full play will be watched.
Anyway, what about World of Blanks?
Chris, we've discussed World of Blanks.
Yeah. No, I played more of World of Warships, and I unlocked the carrier, which I think is actually really, really interesting because all of a sudden the game just becomes an RTS, which I knew going into it, but it takes long enough to get there that I didn't really know what what that would actually, like, whether that would feel good or be like worth actually spending the time to get. It's really good. Like, I'm just shocked. It kind of reminds me of playing like Tribes back in the day, or games that have like very defined roles within a larger battle. I feel like games, as much as like Battlefield lets you jump in a tank, that doesn't really it doesn't define kind of your function within the larger scope of things. Like, people just blow up and then they move on. Like, oh man, the whole game now I just play as a strategic map. I don't even look at anything, and as a carrier you have no like actual weapons, so you're just basically running around the map hiding from every other ship.
Then other players can land and take off from your unit?
Well, you control squadrons of fighters.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Which then becomes this whole mind game with the other carrier pilot or other carrier commanders, because they have ships, some of which can attack you, some of which can attack your fighters. You kind of have to know like what their loadouts are, and then like whether or not they're going to bluff an attack on you and then go for like it becomes this crazy actual like RTS game within the context of just people who are just pointing and clicking and shooting at each other. Like, I don't know.
No, so really, this is other people are playing as warships, but you're playing a carrier and planes RTS inside of that map.
It's so good.
That's really cool.
It's really, really cool. I continue to be impressed by how interesting that game is.
So you've elevated above the warships now. They're just noise down.
Yeah. It's just like, I guess that's a person, but I'm playing my own game, and like half the time people aren't going to coordinate with you, but if they do, then suddenly you sort of become this weird like king piece, or more like a rook or something, where you have this very sort of flanky kind of thing going on, and everybody else is just the pawns sort of in the middle of the map kind of advancing on each other. I don't know. It's really interesting. Anyway.
That's cool. So I'm going to actually read another email about World of Warships.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoops.
I mean, I don't have to.
No, do it.
This is from Wouter Shuram Weersink. Weersink, maybe? I don't know if those are WWs or VWs. I'm sorry. Hey, guys. I always enjoy your podcast a lot, and I'm sad to see Danielle go, but I'm looking forward to seeing what she and Rob can cook up. Last week's podcast, you guys discussed World of Warships, 2 podcasts ago, and what makes it good. I think Spaff was spot on when he called the games out for their looks, sounds, and feel. I think he's talking about Nick Breckon.
Yeah.
No, I called it.
I don't think this is not a Spaff name.
I did it. I had those insightful phrases.
One point you slightly missed is the game's speed. It's much like Counter-Strike with the rounds, the pick-up-and-go gameplay, but slowed way down. It's Team Fortress time for old fart brains.
Oh, yeah.
Was that me who said that? Was it you?
What? I think he's saying that.
I may have compared it to Team
in.
Fortress, but I didn't add the old fart brain, which is probably true. Anyway,
I don't think it's time for old fart brains. I think it's time for old fart brains. I think it's time for the brains of old farts.
Yeah, that's what he meant.
Yeah.
Okay,
I assume that's what he meant.
You accented it old fart brains.
Sorry, you're right. I pronounced it poorly. I used to blast Unreal Tournament when I was 18, like a boss. Not anymore. I lost those fantastic reflexes.
Like a British queen.
What I gained is the patience and skill for tactical mind maps. These games reward that. I don't think you were quite right when you lumped ships in with the grand old strategy games of yore, such as Command and Conquer. It's not about strategy. You're not the admiral or the general, but a single vehicle commander. These games are very tactical as opposed to strategic. The point about the other kind of nerd, the nerd who finds satisfaction in seeing the proper number of road wheels in a movie tank or a correct history quote in a TV episode, was on the nose. It really hit home there. In fact, these nerds are not as underserved as it may seem. There's the world of games that make a lot of the minutiae of these historical vehicles matter. There's War Thunder that does it for planes, which also mentioned in the other email. Speaking of flying, computer flight games never quite came out of their collapse in the early 2000s. There are a few arcade games and a couple of hardcore Switchology games. Nothing in between, and nothing ever came close to touching Falcon 4.0. I wanted to call out one of the so-called Switchology games, DCS. It's free on Steam and sells the good planes as DLC. It has a pedigree and a map that goes all the way back to 90s Su-27 Flanker that was published by SSI. Very sweet in looks and nerdy delights, and also sort of free to play. One last point, World of Warplanes. Regarded by almost everyone as a dud. Why? For one, they borked the control of the planes. Late in their beta, it was great, like a proper light flight sim. All the pilot shit I learned over the years worked. Then they did something to it, and it never became fun again. It's amazingly pretty, but it's dying on the vine. Anyway, enough of this nerd rambling, and thanks for a great cast. Keep it up and fuck Nick. Wouter Shuram Wersink.
Poor
cool.
Nick.
So yeah, DCS was mentioned by both of these readers, and I didn't realize it was free on Steam, so that's cool. Like, look it up if you have any interest in that.
Yeah, I've dipped into all of those.
Oh, really?
It is funny how, like, this audience really is just kind of over here off to the side. There is clearly a massive audience for these sorts of games, and it's just I don't know. But he's right. A lot of them are a lot of those series and that people sort of relied on just kind of took a dive. Which is too bad.
AC Missius writes, "Hey guys, long-time listener here, only occasional gamer. I thought you'd be amused to hear that until this week, I took your references to Dishonored holidays at face value. Kingdom of Loathing, for example, has its own calendar and thus its own holidays that float widely relative to their real-world analogs, so I just assumed that Dishonored must do likewise. I must have been distracted during the original show where you made fun of your own conceit. In addition to this misapprehension, I've adopted, at least mentally, the shorthand of Dishonored X as a way to say somebody's personal or unofficial equivalent of X. Like, Philadelphia was so emptied out when the Pope visited a few weeks back from months of Secret Service threats that it was basically a Dishonored weekend." Okay, forget I admitted any of this, ACM.
I entirely approve of that use of Dishonored.
Weekend.
That's basically, like, I feel like that's close enough, right? I mean,
we have a new podcast coming out called Dishonored.
Josh Thornton writes,
"This podcast is Dishonored Weekend. This is what it will be named after Idle Weekend launches, by the way."
That's true. Josh Thornton writes, "Your depressing discussion of the inability to automate the meatpacking industry reminds me of a series of levels in the Zachtronics in the Zachtronics game Infinifactory. Infinifactory is a programming puzzle game similar to Zachtronics' previous game Space Chem, except you're building machines in 3 dimensions for alien overlords as opposed to deadly chemicals in 2 dimensions for alien overlords. In one group of levels, you are charged with building automated meatpacking plants. The first has you packing live mole things by funneling them with a series of conveyors into a shrink wrap machine while they randomly move around making a hash of everything you're trying to do. Even more disturbing is the whale processing, which in pursuit of smooth operation, I had 75% of the whale ground into oblivion the second it leaves the input platform. I dubbed this machine the whale grinder, and it made me sad. If you enjoyed Space Chem, you should give Infinifactory a shot. It's a wonderful game, and I think its difficulty curve is a little less steep, and the added space lets you brute force problems with inefficient design, where Space Chem just became impossible once you reached your personal peak. Love the cast, Josh, currently from North Carolina." We actually did talk about Infinifactory way back when it came out. I can't remember if it was just me or if other people played it as well, but I definitely talked about it a decent amount and liked it a lot. I don't know if I found it easier than Space Chem necessarily. They're just very different. But
I've heard that sentiment before, though, from people who have said that because it's 3D, that
makes sense.
You can just wedge a whale into a thing if you have to.
Here's an email that I think requires a bit of a mea culpa on our part. Grant Chen writes, "Hey Thumbs, long-time listener here, huge fan of the show. On episode 232, happy Dishonored Halloween. On episode 232, happy #Dishonored Halloween. A reader wrote in about Match 3 games and mentioned Juice Jam, a game I work on. I was really happy to hear the game come up, since most of the games that come up on the show are indie games, and Juice Jam is designed for as much broad appeal as humanly possible. One thing that came up that I wanted to write in about, though, is when Chris said that all these clones of each other are actually clones of each other, and the main thing distinguishing them as marketing. I hate to go, well, actually, but I feel like I should probably speak up here, if only to provide some outside perspective. Referring to freemium Match 3 games as being clones of each other is only accurate if you consider, say, first-person shooters to be clones of each other. They share the same core mechanics, verbs, and aesthetics, but there are a lot of differences that aren't apparent if you aren't a part of it. I think it's an issue of unfamiliarity, and the average Match 3 player would probably consider Battlefield, Halo, and Call of Duty to be clones, which I would consider just as wrong. The Juice Jam design team, yes, it's a full team, spends lots of time concepting, building, testing, revising, and discarding dozens of levels every week, and I would like to think we did too much work to be considered cloning. I shared the podcast episode with my coworkers who also Juice Jam, and it really bummed them out. It really hit close to home. Anyway, love you guys, love the show. Grant. P.S. The cat's name isn't Big Boss, it's Valentino Litterbox. P.P.S. Don't fuck Nick, you don't know where he's been. So I'm really glad we were sent that email.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We definitely are we sort of belong to a part of the industry that has relatively little contact with the development side of that sort of segment, and so it's good to
Having said that, though, I kind of do consider most FPSs to be clones of themselves at this point.
A lot of them are. There are definitely strains of first-person shooter that are like
I rarely will play one anymore because they're just cloned from one another. But that doesn't mean to say that Juice Jam is a clone.
There are different strains, though, right? Like a Halo is entirely different to a Call of Duty.
Yeah,
but then there are games that are just bad clones of Call of Duty. Like there are a lot of games that are just really bad.
There's like leaders in there.
Yeah,
in the strain. And then a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, this is interesting.
Actually, before talking about that,
sure.
Someone else mentioned, was it Doug? Do you have a mail from Doug about that?
Oh,
did Doug write in about pinball?
Yeah,
Doug. No, he didn't write in, but I can find his comment.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to bring up, seeing as we're on that subject.
Here, you can cut this dead air.
Oh no, it's fine. Because last week we were talking. Was last week or 2 weeks ago? Whenever we were talking about this stuff, we were talking about how like free to play, freemium, casual games, people probably have their own nomenclature that sounds completely insane and inscrutable to people on the outside. But whenever anyone invents a new element of that style of game, it probably immediately just drops into the lexicon. And if you're at a convention full of those developers, they would just be talking about a thing that you have absolutely no frame of reference for. And Doug Tobacco, who is he hosts Idlethumb's website and has helped us do web programming and back-end work for the 10 years that we've existed, was talking about this. He said the thing that it reminded him of is actually the pinball industry, which I thought was really interesting. He said, "Oh, you want to do
it?" Sure. He says, "This made me think of pinball. All pinball games are basically built on a decades, possibly century now, old game system, share very common terminology among makers for common gameplay elements like bumpers, flippers, targets, ramps, etc. And occasionally one would introduce some sort of new gameplay element, which would then appear in lots of other games." And then he links to a Wikipedia article, which is Glossary of Pinball Terms.
Glossary of Pinball Terms is intense.
Of which there are enough to have categories for almost every letter of the alphabet.
You got your back box, your back glass, ball saver, banana flippers, bank, bumper. Got everything you could possibly want. Yeah. Captive ball, combo, the DMD, drop target, drain.
Got your wedge head, your wide body, your wizard mode, your wood rail.
Oh, your wood rail.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's also true then for FPSs and so and a bunch of other stuff.
And most game genres, really. But yeah, so I mean, I do think though that there is
to talk about it.
Sure, yes, we definitely were sort of out of our depth there, definitely. But there are differences. I mean, I would venture to guess that pinball games are more alike one another in many respects than some genres, and some genres are probably have a greater sort of average, like, standard deviation size, within them. I think that does change somewhat from genre to genre. Like there are some there was a point at which the adventure game genre could be pretty cleanly divided into a few different categories, and now it kind of just doesn't mean anything. Now it's just like there's so many. I mean,
like within first person, I think the difference between like an immersive sim and a straight up arcade corridor is pretty high, even though there's a gun in the
It's absolutely high. I'm just saying different genres have because game genres are so kind of arbitrarily created, some of them just happen to include games that are almost unrelated to each other, and some of them don't. You know what I mean? But that's like just because those terms are so vague and like weirdly assigned, you know? And it also depends how broadly you get. Like there's real-time strategy, and then there's turn-based strategy, but there's also just strategy games. Like you could say that's a genre. That includes a bajillion things. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. This stuff is all very vague.
Or like the genre of QWOPalikes or like a Spelunkalike genre, for instance. It's got its own terminology.
I want to see someone make a
glossary of Spelunkalike.
I want to see someone make a Spelunkalike that is controlled like a QWOPalike.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's just the most. I mean, that's just the most impossible game anyone could ever make.
Twitch plays Spelunky is basically like
Has anyone
Twitch
done
plays
that ever?
Downwell.
Spelunkalop.
Man, how would you even do Twitch plays Spelunky? How would that even be controlled?
It'd be a disaster.
Horribly. You probably have to queue up the commands. Well, actually, no. It might even be more funny if it's not. If it's just live. Ooh, woof.
How
did Twitch play Dark Souls?
I don't know. Yeah. I should have watched more of that.
I made the gun run rig up Twitch plays QWOP one day,
really?
like a couple weeks ago. And that was just nonsense. Like you couldn't do anything.
Instantly die every single time.
Every time. It was just it was pathetic.
I'm using the accepted video game term "die" to refer to losing the game.
I just lost the game.
Fuck off.
What?
What?
It's important.
Let me see if I have one more thing here. So Jonathan Decker writes, "Hey Thumbs, I finally played through The Last Express based on recommendations in previous episodes of the podcast. I was struck by how similar it felt to the game Titanic Adventure Out of Time, which came out the year prior, which would have been, I guess, 1996. Both games take place on iconic luxury transportation. They both feature endearing animation and amusing fight sequences. They both have a bomb puzzle, although the Titanic one is slightly more cartoonish. Finally, the events of both games are tied closely to the political climate of their time, 1912 versus 1914. Thought you'd find this interesting. If you've never played Titanic Adventure Out of Time, I recommend it, but you'd have to track down an old copy. Jonathan Decker, a.k.a. Lochno."
God, I remember seeing that game in stores at the time.
Yeah, I remember seeing ads for it in PC Gamer and Computer Gaming World. Me too. Yeah, this was an era when I was like, I subscribed to both PC Gamer and Computer Gaming World all through the 90s. I was only a PC gamer. I didn't know any consoles, but I also didn't have disposable income. So I was because of those two magazine subscriptions, which, by the way, to this day, I don't know how I subscribed to, because I never paid for them, ever. And my parents
I had the same thing.
Would never, ever have bought me a video game magazine of any kind.
You know what it was? I think there were you could get like a 12-month subscription by buying a game or by doing like I remember just having magazines like that all the time.
You don't think it was like
I had GamePro forever.
Did you just say like
did
you say like Scholastic Book Club or something? Because that's the other
maybe it was Scholastic Book Club.
You could have maybe ordered it by just.
I bet it was.
Maybe you just check a box on something like that.
Yeah.
You get My Teacher's a Space Alien, and you also get 12 months of GamePro.
Yeah, I bet that's how. Because I got
or something
CGW
like that.
and PC Gamer for for years.
There must have been some just card
90s.
that you had as a kid. That in addition to a wholesome thing, you could get a shitty magazine.
And like it was such a cool.
Sorry, not actually shitty magazine. In the case of
those were great. Those were really good magazines.
Yeah.
And a funny thing about it was that because they were actual real magazines, like especially because I remember I would also read EGM from time to time, and they felt so different. Like PC Gamer and CGW, in terms of just the way they were formatted and published, felt so much more like a sort of traditional magazine, like a normal magazine. As
more text and feature header images, as opposed to a lot of like tiny boxed-in content magazine. Everywhere.
Yeah. And so they had a very like wide purview, and they would cover they would cover games that were not like commercially, that were clearly not sort of had a lot of commercial prospects, but they were just like, well, we're trying to represent like the full spectrum of PC gaming, which includes marketing to like old history dorks and stuff, like the kinds of stuff we've been talking about in some of these emails. And so I just was aware of like
old history,
but it's totally
fart,
old
history
true. You know what
dork.
I mean, though?
Fuck
like,
Nick.
You know what I mean? Talking about like, and so
just
I was
decrepit skeletons.
So I was aware of like a ridiculously high number of PC games, even though I only ever played the tiniest fraction of them. And I remember, because I played a lot of adventure games, I remember being super aware of all of these, including Titanic Adventure Out of Time. I just remember being constantly aware of all this stuff. Yeah. But since I didn't have the internet or anything, I couldn't like watch trailers of them. It was a really weird time to like be interested in video game and like computer games, I guess in particular, and have access to information, but just not the way that you do now.
You have to really live off what was on the disc. On
the demo disc, exactly.
Right?
So I ended up just playing weird shit like Crusader No Remorse that I never would have known about.
Shit out of that game came free with my PC.
Yeah, like that I just never would have encountered otherwise.
Yeah, it's kind of good.
Talking about that stuff reminded me just in the movie The Martian, I was so happy that not only was a Zork game name dropped, but Leather Goddesses of Phobos was name dropped.
I know, that was amazing.
That was really good.
Yeah.
It was a good pull.
Yeah, that was a good pull. Yeah. Well, you guys want to call it on that good pull?
Let's call it a good pull.
All right. Thanks for casting, guys.
Thanks for being a boss.
Good cast. Yeah. Bosses all around. If you have email for us, please send it to questions@idlethumbs.net. I've been saying this a lot recently, but I'm really, really into the email we've been getting recently. We've been getting a lot of it, and it's been really good. So keep it coming. It is awesome. I really like reading it on the show. We have also a number of other podcasts at idlethumbs.net, which include Designer Notes, which recently published its latest episode featuring Davey Reedon, who is the writer and designer of the recently released The Beginner's Guide, as well as The Stanley Parable. That is a really good episode of Designer Notes.
The interviewer in that episode is Adam Saltzman.
Yes, who we mentioned.
Whose work we talked about this week, actually.
Yeah. Yep. And we have our most recently launched podcast, Esports Today, featuring Rob Zachney and Andrew Gruen, talking about the latest in professional competitive gaming every week. There is 3 Moves Ahead, also hosted by Rob Zachney, all about strategy games. We also mentioned this week. They know more about them than we do. It's a really good podcast. And coming soon, Idle Weekend with Rob Zachney and Danielle Riendo. Danielle, formerly of this podcast. You can send them email also to questions@idleweekend.net.
.net. Man, if you want to have hours of your life occupied by people talking about video games in a way that is way more informed and intelligent than us while still entertaining, we provide a lot of content on our website at this point for that.
It's true.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Also, if you like Netrunner,
Terminal 7
Nels makes a podcast about that. Terminal 7. It's actually, if you are into Netrunner, you actually really should.
It's a really good podcast about that. Also, their audio recording quality is so high. Their podcast sounds so good.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If
you think this podcast sounds bad and want to hear people weirder than us talk about a card game that is interesting, but sound pristine, listen to Terminal 7.
Yep.
idlethumbs.net/Terminal 7.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks.
If you want to hear Mossy and Spaff's football fact cast, you have to go to another dimension where Ollie and Spaff actually made that podcast.